Hello, everyone, and welcome to Women Getting Visible first live podcast. Thank you so much, everyone who's out there watching and listening to this one, and to the amazing guests that I have today. Let me welcome Jack, Totlyn, and Amy. Hello, ladies.
Hi,
Hello.
everyone.
This is incredible. I'm so excited. We are around the world right now. So, Jack, tell us where you're calling from and just a little bit about you.
Well, not typically, but currently I am calling from Lisboa, Portugal. But I live in the United States and I live mostly in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And I am the founder of Kuel Life, which is a pro-aging digital platform dedicated to normalizing aging for women around the world.
Fantastic. And Totlyn.
Hi. Christina, it's so interesting that you are focusing on normalizing aging and being a very active aging woman because I just returned from Jamaica, where I'm originally from, where I attended and participated in a conference on Beyond the Horizons and Beyond. Same topic, same feature. So I'm Totlyn, author and speaker. I have authored several books on travel to Jamaica and, of course, communications. I'm also an award winning podcast host where I take the opportunity to speak with authors about their journey of publishing their own books. And, of course, inspirational coaching is what I also do. So, today I'm here. I just came back from Jamaica actually, and I am tuning in today. I'm participating today from Charlotte, North Carolina, in the United States.
Fantastic. And Amy.
My name is Amy Nubson, and ironically, I'm working on moving to Lisboa, Portugal. But right now I live in Minnesota. I'm in Minneapolis at the moment. My journey, I am a business and story coach because I truly believe every person has an amazing story within them, and it's all just waiting to come out. And when we start to use our story in business, we can start to create trust and confidence in ourselves.
Well, yay! And these are the amazing ladies on the first episode of Women Getting Visible, and who are also going to be the speakers and workshop hosts in our conference that's coming up October 10, 11, 12 in Washington, D.C. So I am honored to have you ladies here today and for that event. So my first question for all of you, and this can be a fun one, is if 10 is absolutely visible in where you want to be, and one is, oh, I'm visible enough, where do you see yourself in visibility? Totlyn, let's start with you.
Wow. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest of visibility, I would put myself around about 7, 8 with where I'd like to be. Because interestingly enough, I started my visibility career behind the scenes. So folks would hear my voice, but not see my face because I spent many years in radio. Also, as far as visibility is concerned, which is why I got into communications coaching, helping people with public speaking, is because I was always playing a role on stage when I did theater. So, I wasn't showing up. So, I had to learn how to become visible as me and be comfortable as the real me. Because everything else I'd done before, even though it's public, I was still hiding behind, I was like, now you see me, no, you don't. No, you don't really see me. And I had to learn to become comfortable with becoming visible. So about a 7.
That's a great number. Amy, what is your number?
I feel like that my journey is very similar. I would say my number is more like a 6. I got into marketing so I could hide behind other people's brands. So I was the same thing when I became a coach and I started to talk about storytelling. I had to come into the forefront and go above my company. And I always got to hide behind my company after 20 years. I was like, no more. But I would love to get out there more. I am getting an international audience. But I'm like, there's always more to do. There's always more to see. There's always better visibility. And in the world, it's always changing. So you never know how things will turn out in the future. So, yeah, I would say 6.
Fantastic. And Jack, your visibility number?
While I would love to say a 10, then there's no room to grow. And that's not possible. Like Totlyn, I was also a theater child, and I was going to be an actor. I spent my entire life in the spotlight, but portraying other roles. And also when I went out into the corporate world, I typically was the only woman in the room, and I felt like I was playing, quote unquote, a role and kind of hiding a little bit. And now, as I run and lead Kuel Life, and also I'm a published author and a speaker, I feel like I'm moving towards more of being visible, showing up as who I am versus a persona or something that somebody else wants to see. There's room to grow. So I've gotten so much better now than I was when I was younger, but I think I'm a 7.
Well, I think these are all great numbers. 776. I think it's terrific. And if you ask me where I am, it's interesting because if you asked me a year ago, I would have said a 2 or a 3. But I have decided to take it by the reins, and I've woken up to my own journey of visibility. And it's so much fun to watch yourself change through the moments of going, what is it? You know, for me, it was hitting a special birthday and saying, you know what? No one's going to do this for me. It's time to get on my own journey and start getting visible, because I've always loved being in front of the camera, and it was time to do it. So that's my next question is, what was the thing that made you say, you know what, it's time to get on my visibility journey? I'd like to start with Amy.
Mine was a bit dramatic. Mine was taking my world crashing around me to realize it was time to step up and do my own journey. It was a moment crying in my office and not wanting to go home, not wanting to see my husband, not wanting to answer the calls of my clients because they were all mad and pissed off at me because none of the work was getting done, because an accident had changed my world in 3 seconds and flipped our world upside down, to the point where I realized I had built my career around my husband's capabilities. And without my husband being able to provide those services, I had no business. And when I realized, I'm like, wait, but what's my role in this? What do I want? Who do I want to be? I had to sit there and answer those questions as I was crying, and tears are going down. And I'm like, it's not this. So then the next moment I had to go, how do I become who I want to be? And it took me 3 years of a journey to figure all that out and to move forward with it. But I would never give up that opportunity to have said, stop, relook at what you want in life. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity that came into my life and changed it forever.
Wow. It's amazing to think of the things that you've been through, but to get to that moment of visibility for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And Miss Jacqueline, what was your moment to say, I've got to go grab this?
Well, interestingly enough, my moment was a physiological change that is normal and happens to every other human on the planet. And that, my friend, was menopause. And while many, many women go through this change and barely even, like, they don't even notice it, it came at me with furor. I mean, it came at me with weight gain and anxiety, and I was the worst version of me that I possibly could be. And what my reaction to that was, is I got smaller and smaller and smaller. And I made myself invisible. And I knew, I was in my early 50s, and I'm like, what the truck? Am I really spending the next 30 to 40 years, to maybe even 50, if I'm one of those weird lucky ones, invisible and not feeling like me? I'm like, that's not happening. And so I needed to fix it. And then what happened was when I realized that I was suffering and I needed to fix it, I realized I'm not that special. There has to be other women out there that are in the same boat, and maybe they need someone they're championing for them to get the right information. And that was the motivation for me. It was pain.
Wow. And that is the life of a woman's story, right? That's part of who we are. And Miss Totlyn, your story of what made you decide to do the things you're doing now in your visibility journey.
I would probably go back looking at one day when a fellow Toastmaster, I was in Toastmasters for the fun of it, entering winning competitions and practicing my public speaking skills, since I really do enjoy helping women find their voice and become a very good communicator slash speaker. And I'm there enjoying myself when out of the blue, a fellow Toastmaster friend of mine said to me, Totlyn, what is your brand? I was like very annoyed, irritated in a good way, because that question made me uncomfortable, because it was pulling my attention to the reality that I had been ignoring all of the composite eclectic skills I have and the personality that I have to share. Let me get it back here. We had to make sure that we were paying attention to what more my life could unfold for me in a way where I no longer was only promoting other people, but also learning to promote myself and feel comfortable about it, learning to post about my wins, learning to show up in my own skin, learning to enjoy the skills and the talents I have to offer the world. And I was just not a conduit, but I was a whole content. So that disturbing question, Christina, that I was asked of me that day, wherein, Totlyn, what's your brand? Because it disturbed me enough to know that there was more for me to be, become, show up as, and accept the wholesomeness that lay within. So I had to get out of my own way and become as visible as I possibly can each and every day. And it happened. You know what made it happen even more powerfully? The fact that I started to post full body pictures of myself on social media. I would only do my top and just random things. And there was a voice inside me that said, you need to start showing up as your full, beautiful self, as your mate.
Wow. And it's so amazing. I mean, when we go through those transformations and finding our own confidence along the way, because we have that confidence when we're little and we're just playing and we're doing our things and just living life. And then suddenly changes starting to happen and we become so questioning of what's going on, and then question ourselves the entire time and live our life that way until we hit that point again where we're like, okay, stop that, start showing up for yourself. And it's just a crazy journey that we all go on along the way. So I'm going to do one of my favorite things when it comes to panels. If there's a question that you're thinking of that you would like to ask one of the other ladies, let me know. Anything that comes to mind? I see ticking minds going on.
I guess my first question is, and anyone can answer this, it surrounds the idea of resistance or innate ability as women to resist the new and saying yes to better, because we are so accustomed to, well, this is the way it always goes, so let me go along with it. So we're not saying yes to that invitation, to that new country or to that new event. We're not quickly saying yes to and for ourselves. How did you, I'm still navigating it. How do you navigate that inner resistance that we have towards stepping fully into advancing into the opportunities that literally are sitting at our fingertips?
That's a great question. And I mean, my brain just exploded because here's the deal. I don't always know, right? I don't always know. And what I've realized, so I'm in Lisboa right now, and last minute, I'm here for a month. It's what I do. I like to travel for periods of time so that I can experience the place that I'm in. And at the very last moment, I decided that I should sign up. I can't even talk. I should sign up for an immersive language program. So I've been taking 20 hours of Portuguese every week. And that's why, like, my brain can't even speak English. I'm so uncomfortable. I'm so uncomfortable. Why did I sign up for that? Well, here's the deal. I know that discomfort literally is the only way I'm going to stay alive, healthy, and in tethered to this world, meaning we have to stay in the game. We can't, because we're 40, 50, 60, 70, just say, okay, I'm taking a time out. Because if you take that time out, it's over. If you're in this life, be in this life. And that means discomfort, even at 50 or 60 or 70. So I don't know if that answered your question, because I don't always have the answer, right? There's so many options out there. Which one do you choose? Which path do you select? And do you even select it because you know you're going to be uncomfortable? And that sucks. That sucks.
Yes.
Yeah. To who wants to choose uncomfortable?
Yeah, that's true. That
I
is
always
true.
choose uncomfortable.
Me too. I like uncomfortable. I'm so twisted.
It is a great question, though, and you hear it a lot in how we tell our own stories and how people verbalize their words, right? And when I grew up on a small dairy farm in Wisconsin. I'm like, so right there in my mind, put me in a container of like, this is as good as you can get, or this is as far as you can go out. Because for some reason, everybody around me wanted to just stay in our small little country town, like get married to a farm kid, run a farm. And I'm like, get me off this farm as fast as I freaking can. Like, I wanted off. I didn't want that life. And I felt guilty about it, that I didn't want the life everybody else around me wanted. And I'm like, I want to be in the city. Like, I want to be around people. So one, I felt really uncomfortable in my own environment growing up and didn't feel like I fit in, but I had thank God for college, right? Like, it allowed me an opportunity to go into the city in a safe environment, in a safe, like, here's what you need to do. And I travel all over the world as well. I put myself in uncomfortable situations all the time because I thrive in those environments. And I notice it too when people tell me their story. One of the things I notice, especially with women, we will either talk down our story or try to explain our story instead of expressing our stories. And there is a massive difference in how people receive it by the way we tell our stories. And I think that limiting environment, or what we live in, it's usually the boundaries we put in ourselves, right?
Yes.
It has really controlled the way we narrate our lives. So I think it's all about the confidence.
I agree.
I have a question, Christina, if you're ready for a different question. I would like to know from all three of you, do you remember the biggest sort of visible failure that the first time you're like, oh my God, I cannot believe I just did that. And I cannot believe it came out like that. And I cannot believe people are going to see that. Because You know that it did not go the way you intended it to, but there it is. It's out there for the world to consume because you got to take the good with the bad. So I would love to know, do you remember, do you recall a moment where you're like, oh, SHIT?
Yes. I remember it right off the right off the bat. And it's two experiences that are so similar. I was 11 years old in high school, junior high. 11 years old is when we started high school back home. All girl school, all girl Catholic school, and they had a thing where you could do a small talent show. I got up and I decided I was going to tell a story. Don't even remember the story. In the middle of the story, ladies, I completely forgot everything. Everything. Blank. They started to laugh. High school girls. Anyway, it was uncomfortable, Amy. I stood there feeling silly. Then I recalled the rest of the story, completed it. The other time was I was 16 years old playing in a pantomime. I had to sing, and I had this thing in my head I couldn't sing. I had a song to sing with a note. At the top of the note, I cracked so terribly. I played it off as if that's the way it was supposed to go. But when I came off stage, I was hanging my head down. Those two visible experiences where everybody saw, I had to navigate the emotions I felt from those two apparent failures because they were just apparent. What I walked away with is a confidence to learn to let things roll off my back for good or bad or worse. And that probably kept me in the safe zone of just playing characters until what? I hit my late 50s when I decided to show up as me and not a character. So, yeah, that's my story.
Love it.
Wow.
I remember my situation. I was new in corporate. I was first job ever out of college. You're so excited, that first job. And I started getting bullied by a female in my cube mates. And I honestly didn't realize that was possible. I was just so blown away with this idea. And my manager's like, just deal with it. She's a bully, figure it out. 22 years old, trying to figure it out. Like, how do you deal with this? And I remember a point where it got so bad, we actually, in a sea of cubicles, had a blowout, screaming argument. And we're right next to the VPs, and they all heard it, and I'm going, okay, this was not my shining moment, in the world, and it was also the moment where I realized I was not going to get the support I needed in my company to get beyond this problem that I had to school. Like, now I could figure it out, but in 20 years old, I didn't have those skill sets. And so it was a deciding moment where I'm like, I need to leave. So it's like I think those moments stick with us. And those moments where I'm like, being an entrepreneur for 20 years, God, there's moments where I'm like, this sucks. But then I remember that moment screaming in the office. I'm like, nope, this is so great. This is wonderful. I can control my environment and how I perceive and what my life is like. So I love those moments because I can compare what's happening now and go, it's still not as bad as that moment there. And the embarrassment I had and the shame that I had in that moment. So yeah, there's so many, but it's part of life.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think about, when you start to have those emotions of that embarrassment, because mine also goes back to 11 years old, sixth grade. And I was so excited because I was a good artist. I got to be chosen to make a poster board of an itsy bitsy yellow polka dot bikini. And I was the tallest girl and the most mature looking girl. So the teacher said, okay, you can move the poster board. You'll hold that in front of you while we sing the song in front of the school. And then again for the parents on that night. So again, being the tallest girl and the size of a poster board, and my mother, I was so excited she bought me a new skirt for the event, but my mother always made sure my skirts were way below my knees. So the end of the poster board, and then my skirt is down here at the end of the poster board, which actually ended up being delightful looking back on it. But I was so embarrassed that I'm like, you can see my skirt. It doesn't look like I'm in a itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini. And the children drew pictures of it, like the kindergartners, and they drew the bottom of my skirt underneath. And it was at that, as silly as it is, at that moment, I'm like, oh, wow, they thought it was just part of the costume. They didn't see it as anything else. And, as embarrassing as that was for me, wearing a skirt that I thought was too long, thanks, Mom, but I appreciate, but
Mhm.
just being able to look at it in a fun way and just, taking it for that lesson and going, okay, everybody interprets differently.
Differently. Correct. Correct. That reminds me so much of a client of mine who she could not get past, because we do this kind of shadow work in our communications coaching, and where you have to look at yourself at 10 years old, what happened around that time. And she couldn't get past the fact she was also she was an immigrant from India, heavy accent, and she was able to identify that at 16, when she had to do high school, how difficult it was for her, how she felt bullied by other students, and a whole host of things that followed her right into her corporate career, where although she was an excellent IT professional, she felt just shrouded and just jeered by her peers, which were mostly men. By the time we were finished with our exercise, she was shining street and lane, and her whole world just opened up when she was able to identify that at 16. She
Mhm.
experienced exactly, Jacqueline, what just like we share here. So these things really impact you for a very long time, unless you take the time to stop and look and do self-reflection and all whatever method you need to
Yeah.
identify where that thorn got in your flesh.
Well, ladies, it is about time. And this conversation, we could keep on going. And guess what? We will. We'll each have our own podcast again with each of you. And then for those of our friends out there who get an opportunity to see us, to join us at the Women Getting Visible conference in October 10, 11, 12 in Washington, D.C. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. And we'll see you again real soon.
All
Bye-bye.
right.
Let me personally invite you to the Women Getting Visible. So thank you again for joining.